Yay!
Do it.
Hello. Hello,
Good.
Victoria.
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Really good. Yeah. It's busy as always. That's always the case. But yeah, really good.
It was really, it took kind of 6 months to kind of happen
hmm
because we spoke in, I think it was October last year, wasn't it?
We met
Very
at
briefly.
Future Dreams um event. Was it October? No, was it October?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, that was at the Savoy it was.
Yeah. Time just
Amazing.
really
And do you
good.
know what? It was when you were on stage and you were talking when you were being interviewed, and I was like, that was the first time I'd heard anyone talk about imposter syndrome. And I was like, whoa, that's a thing. That's a
Yeah.
thing. I just thought, obviously, me being a man with breast
Yeah.
cancer.
I mean, for you, it's a whole different level, I think.
But it was interesting because I resonated so much with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And weirdly, I then was sat next to somebody and they said a similar thing.
hmm
Because obviously you had I say only had surgery.
Mm.
And
That's
that
how I feel. I feel like it's an only. I know that it's funny. We never take I think the saying is if you take the advice that you would give to your loved ones, then you would always feel the right way, do the right things, say the right things. And if it was someone that came to me and they had been through what I've been through, or someone's been through that hasn't had to have chemo, I would still say that's still incredibly traumatic for you. And it must have been really tough. And you still feared for your life, and you still have a young child, and you still have family and friends, and all the things that come along with it. So you shouldn't minimize your experience just because you escaped chemo. But because it was me, I was feeling very lucky and not really deserved of the concerns that everybody had. Sounds crazy, but yeah, I think that's where the imposter syndrome kind of set in. If I'm honest, it was there already because I have sickle cell. It was kind of already there a little bit because I do have the full condition, but I have thankfully a slightly milder version of the condition that lots of people have, and they're having to have like blood transfusions all the time. So they take medication every day that it can lead to amputations, all kinds of stuff.
wow.
But because I don't go through that, I feel really guilty. And then the same thing
Yeah.
happened then when I was diagnosed with the breast cancer, even though it turned our world upside down. I still knew people that were going through it, and chemo was just ravaging their bodies, and I just felt really
Yeah.
guilty.
Yeah. I'm more so I felt that after the event, the more people I've spoken to,
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I really kind of escaped this.
Mhm.
Is so excuse my naivety, is sickle
Yeah.
cell, is that life threatening then?
Well, for me, no, thankfully. Uh, it can be, in the sense that it's a progressive condition. It's basically your blood cells are shaped differently and don't work the same way as they should. So for instance, somebody without sickle cell, their red blood cells will live for between 100 and 120 days, and then they regenerate. The new ones are
Mm.
formed. Whereas with sickle cell, they live about 10 to 20 days. So
Right.
your body is working overtime to
Right.
constantly
Okay.
keep going. On top of that, there can be complications in surgery, which was why I had to have the full body blood exchange before my double mastectomy, just that I got through the surgery, and also to help me with recovery as well. You can have strokes. It basically, if the blood isn't flowing to certain parts of the body, you can have multiple organ failure, which is how my dad passed away. If you aren't getting enough blood flow to certain parts of the body, then they can die. So you end up having to have amputations. So yeah, eventually it can be fatal. It
Wow.
just depends on the level you have it, and then the medication that's available to you and lifestyle.
Yeah. I suppose it's good that they knew that it potentially could affect your surgery, so and
Yes. Yeah.
adjusted it. So
Thankfully.
what's the time? scale of your blood? Is it kind of midway? Is it
No, it's the same. It's the same. It's just the way in which my condition affects me is different. It's different to others, is that I don't have to have the daily, because they're on antibiotics for the rest of their lives, people with sickle cell normally, sickle cell anemia, because you can be a carrier, which is sickle cell trait, which my mum is, and it doesn't affect you so much. It's in your system and it can be passed down to your children. But I have sickle cell anemia SC, which is basically, I don't know, like the slightly milder version of the full one, which is SS. And so my blood cells are the same in the sense of their lifespan. And what it does within my body, you can have pain crises, the fatigue is crazy. It's very restrictive in a lot of ways, but I don't know, I got lucky and I am able to live a almost normal life compared to some people who are in and out of hospital every month.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So what year were you, to go back to breast cancer, what year were you diagnosed? Because you'd finished Coronation Street, hadn't you?
Yes. So yeah, I finished Coronation Street, then went on, I did a bunch of other shows, but then did Celebrity X Factor. And then it was not long after that that we got pregnant. I had my son January 2021, and July 2021 I found the lump. So he was 6 months.
Yeah, and that was kind of still COVID.
Oh, it was
restrictions,
absolutely, wasn't it? COVID. I mean, throughout that whole time, it was so scary because it was scary enough being pregnant when we didn't know what this virus was, because when we got pregnant, it was the first lockdown. And I remember just thinking, are we being, it's the most miraculous thing in the world. It happens all over the world, but I still feel it's a miracle to have a baby. And I just felt really selfish bringing a child into the world when there was this virus that everybody was in their houses because they couldn't be near each other, because they could kill people by giving it to people who are vulnerable. Because, we didn't know as much about it then. And obviously didn't have any vaccines or any real...
I mean, it was a crazy time, wasn't it? It was like
that.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I just remember wanting Theo so much, but also feeling, what am I doing? Is this really selfish anyway? That was the first lockdown. And then we had him January 2021, which was just under a year into COVID. And so lockdown was on and off, as we all know. And then going into the hospitals, thankfully, we just missed the period of time where partners weren't allowed to go in with the mums when they were giving birth. We just missed it. So Johnny was able to come in with me, which we were so grateful for. And then it was really difficult because our home in France, Johnny's, which is where we are now, Johnny's company is here. And so he had to be back and forth to England every 2 weeks, maybe, to keep everything going here. Because obviously I couldn't work. COVID was one thing, then me just having the baby, then being diagnosed with cancer so soon after. He was trying to keep everything going, keep us afloat. And COVID just got in the way of everything, all of the travel restrictions. It was really tough. Even to this day, I don't know how he did it, because his mind must have just been all over the place, and he was missing so much time with his newborn son, because he had to be traveling back and forth, because I couldn't leave the country. It was just crazy, honestly.
So did you have the baby in France or England?
In England. I had to be in England because of the sickle cell, because my hematology team are there. So we had the baby January, and then we didn't actually get to come back to France until May. So he was 4 months old before we even got back here. And then literally 2 months later, I found the lump. I had 2 private ultrasounds.
Well, what was that? So obviously I've heard you shared the story on stage about how you found, which obviously you smile and you give off a kind of like, oh yeah, you know, it was nothing, but
No, it
but
wasn't.
you skipped over it then. But obviously, how did you know, what when you because everyone asks me the same question, like
Yeah,
what happened when you found that lump?
yeah.
What went through your mind?
So, um, so as I said, it was quite difficult for us with the travel, and the birth was difficult too because of the sickle cell. And so we were already under quite a lot of pressure. My body was under a lot of stress, emotionally, physically, everything. So one thing that I just, it makes me really sad when I think about it, because I felt like we were robbed of our time together. So when you're breastfeeding, there are so many changes in your body, and especially in your breast, because obviously they fill with milk and all the hormonal changes. So when I was breastfeeding Theo, and I just kind of felt something. It was just small, maybe like really small, but really close to the surface. And it was maybe the size of a chickpea. Like, it wasn't big, but it was hard. And I just kind of thought, oh, well, you know, this, you know, and the thing is as well, women can just have particularly lumpy breasts, or men may have, you know, things going on. You just never know. But there was just something about the way this felt different to anything else I'd found before, because I'd had found lumps before and had them checked and they were benign. They said fibroadenomas, you're fine. There's just something different about it. Plus, I was just hyper sensitive about my entire body, because I'm constantly seeing all these changes from giving birth. Also, I'm the 5th person in my family to develop breast cancer. And I'm a patron of Prevent Breast Cancer. So I guess all the information I'd learned from those 2 factors, plus because of that, having to be really bodily aware with becoming pregnant, I just knew. I kind of knew, and I was trying so much to just push that thought away, but I just felt I knew where this was going to go. Anyway, so we were in France, and I had an ultrasound 3 days after, because thankfully here this healthcare system's a little bit different. So I had an ultrasound 3 days after I found the lump. They said that I was fine. They just felt, again, it was just to do with the breastfeeding, continue breastfeeding.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't love that because I know my body.
Well, no, but I mean, you would have been weirdly reassured then.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
God.
normal to listen and to accept what you're told when it's a medical professional. And this is not me saying you shouldn't, because you absolutely should. But also, it's really important to bear in mind that you know your body better than any doctor ever could, as far as what's changing on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. So if you actually feel there's still something wrong, you absolutely have to get that first, second, third, maybe fourth, whatever it takes, opinion. Because then I went for another scan a week later, because I sat on it for a while and I was like, it just doesn't feel right, and I've just had a baby, and it's just not an option for me to not be here for him. So I have to work this out. So then I went for another ultrasound a week later. Both of these were private.
Different doctor, same doctor, or
different hospitals.
right?
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely different hospitals. Again, private, but very reputable. Like where we live, the top 2 really, just because I didn't want to take any chances. Anyway, they said that they could feel and see something, but they felt it was calcifications due to the milk, a few blocked milk ducts, to continue breastfeeding, but to massage the breast as I'm breastfeeding to help release that. Finish breastfeeding for a year, like after a year, and then wait 1 month so that the milk can dry up, then go back for a mammogram. And I was like, okay, so are you telling me that I'm fine and there's nothing to worry about? Or are you saying, oh, breastfeed for another 5 months, wait a month for it to dry up, and then come back just so we can be sure. And I just thought, I need to know you're sure now. What's going to happen in 6 months' time? But at the same time, I thought, God, so do I just keep going and going and going? Am I supposed to go to 20 different doctors and get these ultrasounds and just hope that somehow someone picks it up eventually? What's the end game?
So what was it? Scan number 3.
That was, yes. So those, I had those 2, and I just booked a job, which was Death in Paradise. So then I flew out to Guadeloupe with my son and my mother. And whilst I was there on set, I found another lump. So now I've got 2 lumps in the same breast, very close to each other. And in my mind, I'm like, for them to grow at such a rapid rate, what does that even mean? Like, this is over a period of, I'm talking weeks.
Yeah, because obviously scan 1 and 2 didn't see that second lump.
The second one, no. Scan 1 saw the first, but thought it was, sorry, scan 2 saw the first, but thought it was kind of, like I said, calcifications due to blocked milk ducts and things. But scan 2 wasn't on either of the ultrasounds. Sorry, lump 2 wasn't on either of the ultrasounds. And then I finished the job, came back. We went to England to visit family. And I remember just sitting there with my partner's mom and my partner Johnny and my son, and just going, I can't leave them behind. I can't, because it was still playing on my mind, and I just fully believed that something was wrong. And I'm not, I don't I don't say that lightly. I don't feel like that all the time. I actually feel usually very fit and healthy, and I actually make a point of making that the case, in my lifestyle and my diet and exercise. So I went to my GP, and they have an amazing system in place called the One-Stop Breast Clinic. If you are symptomatic, they refer you to the breast clinic. You're seen within 2 weeks, and at that appointment, they do everything. Did you have that? I'm sure.
Yeah. It was the 2-week thing.
Yeah. So on that day, I had the physical examination, the consultation with the specialist, an ultrasound, a mammogram, a biopsy in each lump, and a needle test in my armpit, because by then, and this was October 6th. By then, they'd found a lump in my armpit. So I've got 2 lumps in my breast, 1 in my armpit. This is going from maybe the end of July until the beginning of October. So they did all of those tests, and I remember in the mammogram just knowing and deciding that whatever they find, no matter how small it is, I'm going to opt for a double mastectomy. I refuse to live my life worrying about this. I don't want to take a small bit away and then maybe it comes back, or maybe it comes in the other breast. If I'm prone to it, I don't want to risk it.
Yeah. So if it had just been like an isolated lump,
mm-hmm.
but still cancerous, you would have had a double mastectomy.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Do you think the problem came from you spotting it so early? It made it harder for them to confirm what it was, in France.
I think it's a mixture of that, but also my family history, I think, plays a big part. And I think, and I did explain that to them, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it got lost in translation. Maybe, I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on the reason why they missed it. But I think,
this, it's a bit of a worry. I know it was a worry kind of after the event for me, if that makes sense, that if you are too cautious
Yeah.
too aware of your body, and you notice a change so early that it's kind of like the doctor might just go, yeah, it's nothing, because obviously that appears to be a thing in like younger women and men, definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so that was NHS, the full
Yes.
test.
So that was the NHS, the One Stop Breast Clinic. That was on the 6th of October, and then after I'd had all of that done, I was actually in the hospital for 4.5 hours having all of this done on the same morning. Same for you.
Yeah.
And I remember kind of sitting there because my mum had been through the same thing. 2003, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And we're both so naughty, really, because she didn't tell anybody what was happening until the day before she was going in for surgery. And
Wow.
I know.
Not even you.
No. I mean, this was 2003. So I found out, she told me, she told us, because I was living in London at the time. She was in Manchester. So I wasn't seeing what was going on. And it was easy for her to hide it. But I also have a younger sister. She's 12 years younger than me. She was in primary school at the time. And she just arranged for her to go and have like a sleepover, like a bit of a holiday at a friend whose daughter also went to the same school. So she'd take her in the morning, and then she just went and had the surgery. And she just told, my mum had 6 sisters. So she just told her sisters and her mum the night before she was going into surgery. And that was that. And she didn't want to worry anybody.
Yeah.
Cut to however many years later, I didn't tell anybody until I told my mom the day I got back from the biopsies. And the reason why I did that is because she was looking after Theo and I couldn't lift him. And there was kind of blood soaking through my shirt, because obviously they'd patch you up and everything, but it's
otherwise you would have kept it a secret still.
I probably would have kept it a secret until the diagnosis, and it's not about me not wanting to talk about it. It's not about any kind of taboo or any shame, which is actually really very prevalent in certain cultures and religions. It's because I didn't want to worry anybody. And I just thought, I might be wrong. Please, Lord, let me be wrong. And then I don't have to tell anyone and they don't have to worry, because the family has been through enough. As I said, I'm the 5th person.
There's not, the BRCA gene isn't
no,
thing, is
present. It's not present in our family.
Crazy.
So there's got to be something, and they're working on things all the time. There'll be a common thread somewhere. It's just something that's not discovered yet, perhaps. I have a mutation of the ATM gene. I can't remember what that stands for, so please don't ask me to say, but I will look it up, how to pronounce it. But I have a mutation of that. So now the rest of the family are looking into getting themselves tested for that, to see if that's what it was, if that's, part of the reason. It's a lower percentage than the BRCA genes, for sure. And there's another one called PAL-B2, which is also quite,
right.
It's like I'd probably say the third likely after the BRCAs. But yeah, it is more often than not the case when you have so many in the family, especially down the same line, because it's all down my mum's side of the family. So
is there any, well, actually, I suppose you need to find out, because I had the genetic testing and they said there'll be implications for my daughter, who was at the time, she was 6, and I was just like, it's just crazy. It's like to even think that,
think about that,
they're planning mammograms for her in like 35 years time, or even 25 years time. But obviously I wasn't a carrier either. I know, because again, you mentioned the ATM gene, and I was like, oh, maybe this is what because obviously I'm not BRCA1, BRCA2, but maybe there is a thing, because apparently they can only test 98% of the cells at the moment, and that potentially could change,
right?
So yeah, no, because obviously genetics doesn't care if you've got a daughter or a son, does it? So it's a weird one.
No.
So
it's something we do have to look at because the BRCA2 gene is in my partner's side of the family. So we have to get him tested now to see if he is a carrier of that gene, because that combined with the ATM, maybe not the greatest news.
But yeah, the breast cancer thing, it's interesting that you said you were going to have a double mastectomy regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, so like from the period of the initial, was it 4 months of constant worry then, essentially?
July, I found the first lump. October 6th, I had the tests, and then literally they said, can you come back next week in 7 days, bring somebody with you, which I've heard that sentence a million times before with family, so I knew what that meant. That was the October 13th. Yeah, so a lot longer than was fun. And I told my partner 2 weeks before I went for the tests. So he didn't know about the ultrasounds. Because again, I just thought maybe there's nothing to worry him about. You know, I don't want to put that stress on anybody.
No, yeah, this is it. I mean, I've got 0 history in my family as well. So, and obviously being male. Yeah. And the question everyone asks me is like, did you know men could get it? And I'm like, I think I did, but it just
not on your radar.
Well, I think I was aware of Montel Williams. Remember that chat show host?
Yeah.
In America, and I think I was aware he developed it. But I was in a weird denial, like a coping kind of strategy, just to get by. And then for me, it was like, I mean, I'm quite proud of how quickly I acted. So found it on the Sunday, doctors on the Monday, following Thursday, they were like, we think it's cancer. And I was just like, okay. Yeah, that was just so quick. I mean, amazing that the system worked for me so well.
Yeah, and amazing that you pushed yourself to do that, because so many people wouldn't, you know, they would just, and, you know, I love men, but sometimes they're in the sand when it comes to medical things. Like if they've got something wrong, they're like, oh, it's fine. Or they don't want to talk about it because, you know, I guess there's this feeling of not wanting to seem or feel vulnerable or open up and talk about it. So I'm really, really, really pleased that you just went and got yourself checked, because you're probably here now because of it, you know.
And I give credit to the doctor for accepting that they didn't know what it was, and
and not pushing you off.
It could have quite easily happened, because I've spoken to people since. And again, you know, that isn't just a male thing.
Yeah.
That, because the problem with men is you've got the man is in the mix. He doesn't want to deal with it. The doctor might kind of, you know, just think it's nothing. And by the time you get to the mammogram stage, it's you know, depending on the cancer, it's kind of grown and spread, and it's terrible. But, and you know, for me, it's kind of like raising awareness just for like minorities to keep pushing, like exactly what you did. Like when you know there's something not quite right, don't just like accept the first thing that you hear. Yeah. And there's a lot of younger women, especially, that I've spoken to, and they are like, we were just told you're too young. And then 2 years later, they went back and got the full diagnosis. And I'm just like, that is just, and now their bodies. Yeah, exactly. Treatment
exactly, because the chemo ravages your body. Even, I mean, all of it can, the chemo, the radiotherapy, if you're on medication, whatever it is, you know.
Did you, so when did you actually have surgery then? So if you got the full diagnosis October the 15th.
October 13th. Yeah, was my diagnosis.
Was it a Friday? Was it a Friday?
I think it was, I want to say it was a Thursday, but I'm going to check.
So October.
Yeah, October 13th was my diagnosis. And then I remember actually the doctor when I saw her that day, she said, we can book you in on Friday.
Wow.
We can do, so I think the following Friday, we can do a mastectomy. Because initially they were like, look, we can't just do a double, we can't take away healthy tissue, we can't just do a double mastectomy just like that. But you can put your case forward, and we see what happens. But I can say to you that as it stands with the information we've got now, I can do a mastectomy for you next Friday. And it was just like, oh my God.
That's not a lot of time to process that.
No.
Well, I think you'd already made the decision though, hadn't you? So...
Yeah, it was more, my partner came with me the day that I got the diagnosis, and I just felt him stiffen as she said it. Look, she just went, look, I'm not going to beat around the bush. This is what we found, etc. And he wasn't expecting it. He thought it was going to be that they found nothing, that it was benign, that it was just maybe that there would be surgery, but it was just probably just a lump that needed taken out. It hit him hard, and he wasn't expecting it. It was a shock for sure. And yeah, I mean, there's no way that I wouldn't have pushed for the double mastectomy had that been the case. But because of the sickle cell, I said, okay, thank you for, being able to and offering to get me in so quickly, but I just need to check with my hematologist, because I'm pretty sure any kind of surgery, they need to be all over. So I contacted my hematologist, and he said, no, we can't do this yet. We need to make sure you get through the surgery. And the way to do that is we need to get rid of all the sickle blood in your system, which is all my blood cells are sickle cells. We need to get rid of all of that and replace it with non-sickle blood, so that A, you get through the surgery, and B, you make it through recovery period, which can be up to 12 weeks.
So that's a blood transfusion.
Yeah, but all of it. So sometimes it's like a certain amount, but it was everything, all of it gone and replaced. And that happened 10 days before the surgery. So we had to wait for lots of things to happen. But from the date of being diagnosed to the date of the surgery was 8 weeks. So my surgery was December 17th. My diagnosis was October 13th.
Right. That was an interesting Christmas, I imagine.
Yeah. Very.
So what happened in those 8 weeks where you were kind of, what did you have to do differently then?
Well, lots of things really, because I had to think about, so I had to obviously stop breastfeeding before the mammogram could be done. So there was that whole transition of my body changing, because I was no longer producing milk. Plus the sickle cell, which it's up and down. It's, I can have times where relatively normal and it doesn't really affect me, and then other times where I'm just done in. There was a lot of change had to be put in, because we then had to come back to France to prep for the fact that I didn't know how long I was going to be in England for the surgery, and how long I'd need to recover. Plus we had Theo. So I stayed with my mum so that we had 24-hour help with Theo, and Johnny was back and forth.
So were you planning to have surgery in a Manchester hospital?
Yeah. Because we needed it to be in conjunction with, we just needed for them to have my hematologist to be completely involved along the whole process to make sure that everything was okay. So yeah, we had to just come back. We came back, we got maybe 10 days back here, sorting everything out. And then we went back, and it was just such a strange feeling, because we usually go back at Christmas, in December for Christmas. And the entire family, bless them. I remember when my mum told her sisters together, because she was just like, look, you've got enough to worry about. It's not about you having to tell all your friends and all your family. Just, the people that are close to you, you want to speak to them in person, do that. I can help. So she spoke to all of her sisters, because we're a very close-knit family. So she spoke to them all. And it was also managing all of that. That, if I'm honest, that was the hardest part, managing how difficult it was for everybody else. I felt awful. I felt awful that I was bringing this worry and stress and upset to the family when they've just been through so much. Like all of the, like I said, she had 6 sisters. She has 5 sisters now because the one of them passed away in 2007. That was cancer. And then they lost their mum. That was cancer.
Right. So you were thinking back to the times when you'd seen your relatives develop it and thinking that's what you were going to be putting them through.
And I just was like, oh God, this is, and it was part of, I mean, ultimately I was angry. I was really angry that we'd had so much, it'd been a really tough time anyway. And I was just like, have we not been through enough? But as you say, you know, it's not discriminatory. It'll just, it comes at you regardless, whatever the weather. And I was just really angry about the fact that all of these people were being put through all of this. So I just made, like I said, I made that decision that it would be a full a double mastectomy. I'm not going to have that hanging over my head. Obviously, there's always the chance at different points, you know, but at least if I take away the parts of my body that we definitely know there's a possibility of it being there, then that lowers the chance.
Did your mum have a double mastectomy?
No, she had a lumpectomy. But it was a large lump, and she didn't have reconstruction in that one breast. It wasn't offered to her at the time, and there's such a vast difference between the two, and I always think about it now, like I was lucky I had reconstruction at the same time. They did it all in the same surgery because they didn't want to risk putting me through surgery again once I'd recovered to then have to recover again, and with the blood exchange and all of that stuff. But yeah, she didn't get that. And so I always think, you know, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal for anyone, but I think when for a woman to have your breasts taken away, it can affect you psychologically in a lot of ways. And it always sits heavy on me that she didn't get that, you know, that option. But yeah, hers was a lumpectomy and radiotherapy. So she didn't have chemotherapy, thankfully, and she had tamoxifen for 5 years, which is what I'm on, plus goserelin, which is an injection every month.
Right. How was the tamoxifen? I know. I finished tamoxifen actually it was summer 2021.
I'm so happy for you.
5 years.
Did you celebrate?
I was kind of like, I did a post on it, and everyone was like, oh my God. And it brings out so many stories from people. Oh my word.
It's crazy.
It is. I think I was really lucky. It kind of I just had tiredness. Like I just was asleep a lot.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I've got a 2-year-old son, and he's the most busy. He's just so busy. He's so boisterous, and he's amazing. He's just very defiant and does what he does and runs around all the time. So I'm just exhausted all the time. The sickle cell adds to that. Yeah. My baby brain is extended for sure. Like I just have brain fog all the time, which is really frustrating because it's not great as an actor or a singer when you need to learn and remember lyrics and lines. And just in general, I guess whatever job you've got to do, you know, your memory is important. But I have to say the goserelin is probably the kicker because it's turned my ovaries off taking this.
Right, yeah. So this is
it has to stop. My body needs to not produce estrogen because my cancer is estrogen receptor positive. So,
but weirdly, isn't that what tamoxifen's supposed to block?
Well, yeah, it stops the cancer cells from connecting to the estrogen in order to fuel and feed off it, but they also need to stop the production of the estrogen, and I have ovaries which do that. So that's probably why
Right,
I
okay.
need
So
the glycerolin on top. So it's kind of a two-pronged attack. One of them stops the cancer cells from using the estrogen as it would, and the other one stops the body from producing the estrogen as it would.
yeah.
So that
I guess men just have a small amount of estrogen,
exactly.
but we don't have anything producing estrogen, I guess.
Exactly. Not
right.
So what they do is they turned my ovaries off to stop the estrogen from coming out in the first place, but then also gave me I'm on the tamoxifen to stop whatever estrogen may be there to stop that from binding to the cancer cells. So that's for 5 years as well, the injections every month in my tummy. It's like an implant almost, and it slow releases over the month and make sure that my ovaries stay off. The hot flushes are the hardest part of the side effects, because I'm now in menopause. I'm now in an induced menopause because of the medication. I mean, I don't have periods, which is great and not so great. Great because don't have to worry about them. Not so great because it absolutely definitely means no more children. And we'd kind of come to a decision where we were like, the birth was quite tough, and I'm 41 now, and we didn't want to unnecessarily,
you've been through a lot,
add to the stress and the risks. And Theo is just everything to us, so maybe he's enough. But I think when the decision's taken away from you, it hits differently. It's like it's a bit of a punch to the stomach, because it's like, well, even if you do change your mind, you do want more children, you want to give him a little brother or a little sister, you can. And people said, oh, can you freeze your eggs and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, by the time I finish on this drug course, I'll be 46 before I can get pregnant, and then potentially 47 before I have him. And already that's way too late for anybody with sickle cell, really.
Right.
And even without, it can be dangerous at that age. So that was the thing to kind of
decision. Yeah, it's a big decision. Yeah.
But I just thought, whatever it is that's going to keep this cancer away, whatever small cells, because initially it was DCIS that they had, ductal carcinoma in situ, which is where the milk ducts, the cells in the milk ducts have turned cancerous. That's supposed to be non-invasive, so it's supposed to just stay localized. But by the time they removed this, within those 8 weeks from the date of the test to the date of the surgery, once they then tested everything, they found microinvasion in the breast separate to the DCIS, and then also micrometastases in the lymph node, in 2 lymph nodes in my armpit. Right. So that's in 8 weeks.
That's weird that you didn't need any further treatment.
What, like chemo?
Yeah.
So they sent my sample, they sent my tissue off, samples to get tested to America, because the specific test that they needed is just a bit more advanced there. So they sent it off. We waited maybe 2-3 weeks for that to come back, still not knowing whether I was going to have chemo or not. And then we came back and said that unfortunately the testing was insufficient. We got insufficient evidence. What they were trying to work out was, is chemo going to be beneficial or not? And in the end, they decided it would be more life-threatening than life-saving, that the benefits didn't outweigh the risks.
Because of the sickle cell.
Yes. Right. And so they were just like, look, it's a very low percentage that this will come back. We can lower that even more with the tamoxifen. We can lower that even more with the glycerolin. Chemotherapy, they thought this was a guesstimate, because obviously they couldn't give me exact amounts. It was less than 5% difference having the chemo on top, but the effects of the chemo could have finished me off. So it was kind of that was the decision. From the information that they gave us, that was kind of what we had to go with. The decision of the tamoxifen and the glycerolin was pretty tough to make, I'd say, because the glycerolin's it changes things a lot more. And they did
there's a lot of there's a lot, because I'm following quite a lot of people in the cancer community. It's kind of overlaps weirdly into, I see a lot of kind of like menopause kind of conversations, and that seems to be a very dominant subject. I mean, some of the women that are affected are obviously a little bit older as well. So that's a menopause thing. So you're kind of overlapping into like a third kind of demographic now of like another group that you can inspire people.
My gosh.
I mean, obviously this is something that apparently I was going to have very mild kind of like symptoms from the tamoxifen. The other thing I was going to say, which you didn't mention, was leg cramps. I did get like leg cramps a lot.
Leg cramps.
Yeah, from the tamoxifen.
Funny you should mention that. I have never had them. Literally Sunday, I've started having them, and I don't know whether it's related to the medicine or if it's something separate. So I'm just kind of keeping an eye on it, working it out.
I don't think it's anything serious. It's just purely a symptom. But I used to like just I'd be lying on the sofa in agony, and I'd just be like silently kind of going, just absorb it. It's fine. And just trying. I mean, I was like, if that's the only thing I've got to put up with, I'll do it. But yeah,
how long did it last for you?
The leg cramps was just very intermittent. There was no real pattern. I'd go for quite a long time and then nothing, and then there'd be little periods where I'd just have a lot. I mean, since I've come off it, I think I might have had one leg cramp. So I mean, it's nothing. I'm not even going to complain about that. Do you know what I mean? So
I mean, it's still a side effect, and it's not fun that you were sat there in pain, and you know.
I mean, the consultant was very big on. He kept saying to me, you know, every time I checked in every year with him, he'd be like, "DVT is a real thing. You know, you cannot be sedentary. You've got to make sure you're hydrated. This is just a constant thing. You need to look at."
On the tamoxifen.
Yeah. He's like, you know, be very cautious. Like, so even when I flew to New York. And I was like, right, okay, get up every hour, you know, and do some kind of like calf muscle exercises just to keep the blood going. I mean, I'm sure I was going to be okay, but yeah, it's a thing. I mean, you've been through a hell of a lot.
Feels it, but at the same time, I still have this imposter syndrome, and I still feel very lucky that it could have been so much worse. I mean, the chemo could have really, I mean, especially with a young boy and our support network, we're in another country, you know, when a lot of the time. And so our family, our friends, they're all in a different country, and it's tough. So it could have been, I don't know what, if chemo had been part of the plan, I don't know what we would have done.
Well, I mean, I think you would have found a way, because that's what you've done.
You have to. You just have to.
How has that affected work? Because were you planning to go back to Coronation Street, or was that just not a thing? Or
no, I actually so my friends laugh at me because not in a malicious way, just in this is so typical of you. So my surgery was December 17th, and by April 17th I was flying to St. Kitts in the Caribbean to film my first movie. And they were just like, can you just take some time off and have cancer like a normal person, please? Because I don't know, it gave me this feel. Like I said, I was angry, and I was like, we're just getting back up on our feet after COVID and the birth and all of that. Like I just wanted to get back to some normality and being me, and I was really.
How was kind of like the recovery from the surgery? Kind of, was that okay at that point? Or?
Yes, the incision site, so the actual surgery, it's just literally 2 lines underneath each breast, and that was fine. There was 0 infection. I'm really anal about that kind of stuff though, like cleaning it and being like not having anything touch it and being really sanitary. I'd have gloves on every time. I'd do all that if ever I have any kind of cut. So thankfully that came in handy. But there were no issues with that, but I did develop nipple necrosis, which I don't know if you've heard of it or whether you developed it. It basically is, because they take away so much of the tissue, to lower the chance of there being any tissue left over to have recurrence of the breast cancer, it disturbs the blood flow to the nipple. It's pretty much taking it all away. So it's basically, it's the skin started to die because it had no blood supply.
All right.
So
I mean, that's not good, is it?
No, both sides. And this was
Right.
literally over Christmas. So this happened maybe 2 weeks after the surgery. The blood supply started to, well, it took time for the blood to be able to seep through bit by bit by bit, but it wasn't enough to sustain. So then the whole time that I was kind of trying to focus on that and the medication and everything, I'm slowly going, okay, so they're getting better, but this necrosis is not going anywhere.
That's interesting, because obviously if you had DCIS, that I thought that meant you lost the nipples, because my nipple's gone.
No, so this is the thing. You can have nipple sparing surgery depending on where the mass is located. So it was weird. I had lumps here, which are the ones that I found, but the DCIS they found was further back in the breast, in the nipple, in the milk ducts, but further back, so it wasn't right to the end. So they basically, it was like they took, so say that's the nipple, they took, like they did that as much as possible. So now, even though I didn't lose my nipples in the surgery, I lost half of one side and 3/4 of the other side in the recovery because of the nipple necrosis, which was very frustrating.
Yeah, because I mean, you've not mentioned the kind of like the post-surgery kind of like journey, as if it kind of all went okay, but that's not.
No, it wasn't fun. I guess I don't know. Again, I think it's because, I mean, my son was 1 on the 16th of January, and I wasn't allowed to lift him up and like at all from the surgery. I couldn't carry him, and he didn't get it because he was, walking around already at that point. And I was determined to lift him. That was my thing. I was like, okay, they've said 4 to 6 weeks. I always go for the minimum. They said 4 to 6 weeks before you can lift anything. And they're like, even a kettle, like you just need to let everything settle and heal. These are the exercises we need you to do very gently to strengthen yourself. So I did them religiously, and I worked really hard to, even when I wasn't feeling hungry, to fuel myself and rest. And I was determined to be able to lift him on his birthday, because it was 4 weeks to the day on it. And I just thought, I know they said 4 to 6 weeks, and I know they said start slow, but it's his birthday. So that was kind of it was very motivating to know that I had like a goal to focus on, even though it was so small, probably to a lot of people.
And so did it happen?
But yeah, it was amazing. And it's so weird because they'd put him on me all the time, but it was just different, just holding him and feeling strong enough to hold him and actually walk downstairs, because I was in the bed for a long time. So we had like a little party for him. Just a few family members came round, and it just felt amazing. So that helped. Did you have drains?
No, I mean, I got the pre-op kind of chat.
Yeah.
Obviously, they just have a standard pre-op for everybody, and they were like, "This is going to happen: blue dye, radioactive isotopes, drains." And I was like, "Jesus, this sounds fucking horrendous." And I'd had nothing. I was like, I was a little bit blue.
Yeah.
From the sentinel node biopsy.
Yeah.
Was a little bit blue, peed out the blue, and I was like, I feel all right. I feel okay. I'm like so lucky.
No, that's amazing.
I mean, obviously, I'm not a very big man. I think maybe if I was a larger man, I had more breast tissue, that might have been an issue.
Yeah.
No, I was really lucky. So you had drains?
Yeah. So I had 2 things: a pico dressing, I think it's called. So two pieces of dressing, which was underneath on each incision, point, and that was attached to a little machine, a little square machine that was constantly sucking all of the air out of the dressing so that it would encourage the blood flow to promote the healing, faster healing. So I had that, and that was 2 wires attached to a box, just dangling down. Then I had a drain in here, each side, which was attached to a concertina plastic thing, and then a bag on the bottom to collect all of the fluid and blood that was being produced. So I was literally with these 2 patches, the little electric thing, the 2 concertinas, the 2 bags at the bottom for 2 weeks. Just it was I mean, I was in the bed, so I was only walking from the bedroom to the bathroom because I couldn't go down the stairs or anything.
Right.
But it was just, even sleeping with it, or having to, bless my auntie, she's a seamstress, and she made 2 little bags for me to put on either shoulder, so I could put the bits.
Right, yeah.
She's now, she's making them. She sent a bunch to Prevent, which is really sweet.
That's good. So was this pre-birthday?
Yes. Yeah. So they were off by the time he was 1, which was wonderful. But yeah, that was interesting. And then as far as the rest of the recovery goes, genuinely, I just got an epic group of people around me. Like, my support network is amazing, and we just laughed a lot. As serious the situation was, and as scared as everybody was, we just laughed a lot. And I ate even when I wasn't hungry, because I knew my body needed the fuel. And I'm a big foodie, so I was furious that I didn't have an appetite. And yeah, drank loads of water and took my meds on time and did everything, set my alarm. So everything was clockwork, everything was regimented almost, to make sure that if this doesn't work, it's not because I didn't do my part. I have to do my part. I have to make sure that I do everything I possibly can to not have anyone else go through this again.
Yeah.
Because I've not done what I should,
Yeah. Well, that leads you into now your advocacy and your charity involvement, and how we started chatting. So are you doing any more for Future Dreams, or that? I know there's you've got is there like a youth young person's charity? Oh no, is it pregnancy and
Mummy Stars? I mean, Mummy Stars.
Is that a cancer related thing? I think.
Yeah, so Mummy Stars. Yeah, I'm co-hosting an event with Jenny Powell. She's amazing. We're hosting Mummy Stars anniversary on the. Oh, I don't want to get the date wrong. It's June 17th.
Yeah, you shared it a couple of times. I remember seeing it.
Yeah, and they basically help families who are dealing with cancer in and around pregnancy. Right. So they're amazing, and I'm not a patron of their charity technically, but I just, I think they're wonderful, and it's already a tough enough time for all the family, not just the mothers, but for all the family. It's a really tough time when you're having a baby. It can be incredibly stressful and scary, and you're just all of a sudden trying to keep this tiny thing alive. So, adding cancer on top, which in itself is life-changing, it's a lot. So it's wonderful that they are focusing on that. And then I'm a patron of Prevent Breast Cancer, as is my mum. So we're both patrons of that. I'm a patron of Sickle Cell Care Manchester as well, actually, because they had a huge part to play in everything that was going on. And then, Future Dreams is they're just wonderful. They're just wonderful. I love the team, and I feel privileged, really, to be a part of the family. And I've just said, whenever you need me, let me know. Let's do more things. Let's raise more money, raise more awareness. And I'm working on a few things at the moment. Probably I know this is really annoying when people say this, but can't say exactly what it is just now, but I feel it'll be the most important project that I've ever done. So it's been a long time coming, and life is for living. I don't want to hold back with things anymore now. And like, oh, maybe next year, maybe this, maybe that. I'm just doing it all. I'm saying yes. I'm saying yes.
Yeah. What's the next movie? Or are you focusing on music?
No, it's a documentary. It's a mixture of things, really. It's about the disparity in care. It's about the certain, it's crazy actually, because there's such a huge gap in certain cultures, certain religions, certain sexes, all that kind of stuff when it comes to when they are diagnosed, when they find out, whether they speak to people about it, whether it's seen as taboo, something to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
There's so much in that, but it'll be partly my story. But also I'll be interviewing other people, speaking to oncologists and doctors, research teams, everything. I'm going to do everything I can. It's important. It's really important. For me at the moment, more important than any movie or series or song that I could be working on. I'm working on those too, but I don't know. This for me is something that I hope Theo will be proud of when he's older, then he can watch it. I think it's wonderful what you're doing. I really do.
I'm just gonna, I just want to raise awareness for people. It's not necessarily men.
Yeah.
And I'm not on a mission to get everything from pink into blue or anything like that kind of thing. I know pink's just going to be a thing. It's just
yeah, absolutely.
That's fine.
But it's like, I don't know anyone else. I don't know any other men who have gone through this, and I think it's wonderful that you are having that space for them, and
here's my little simple pitch. Women see me or speak to me, and then it starts a conversation because they're like, I didn't know men could get it. And then they go away and then they share that. I didn't know men could get it. There was a guy there. And then that starts a conversation. And hopefully that'll just kind of like just raises awareness for conversations about breast cancer, not necessarily about men. That's my kind of angle. Thank you again. I really appreciate it.
No worries. It's been a pleasure.
I'll keep my eyes peeled for your next project.
Yes, that would be great. I'll keep you posted. We will be doing a bunch of promo, and we're going to fundraise as well. So I will be, I'll reach out to everybody and let everybody know.
Say hello to Theo and Johnny, is it?
Yeah, Johnny. Yeah, I will do.
Oh no, I'll
have a good day. Take care of yourself.
All right, you too. Bye.